folks. People will join in when they can. Now, the order of the day is that we have to cover yesterday's newspaper. In fact, I had to cover day before's paper as well, but I will not be in a position to do that. But I will cover yesterday's newspaper, and then we'll write down our journal. But before that, uh, I would recommend that some people had called me yesterday that some of you are in first year, second year, and still studying. I would recommend that you also go through whenever you have time, instead of just academic books. Also go through some other books. For example, there's a book of Sudha Murthy in general, which will help you in your governance, and in general, number of examples that you can give from that. Then there's another book by APJ Abdul Kalam, Wings of Fire. So something like this, don't read just fiction, because fiction will not be able to give you a lot of meat, but a lot of non-fiction will start giving you perspective in life. For example, I recently read this book called Psychology of Money. You can give examples from Rich Dad Poor Dad. You can give examples from Ikigai. So this broadens your perspective of things when you are writing answers, and that is what is required when you see the answers of toppers with respect to ethics and essay, which are kind of non-coaching oriented, very very open canvas, and that is where your personality gets painted, just like your interview where your personality gets painted. I mean, you can't hide it from the examiner. So similarly, ethics and essay, these are open canvases that you can express your personality. That is where you can fetch good amount of marks. So people for the Indian Economic Services who are now attending this session, we will try to formulate this kind of a strategy for you as well. I hope you guys are already reading another newspaper, but this is what I want, is that when you are sitting for the interview, when you are giving the interview, your personality speaks for yourself. So, and that is one part of that is how well you are read. So that determines a lot of your confidence as well, and then how do you articulate your argument, that is also there. So we'll try to rectify some part of it, but a major part of your personality has already been decided by what you've been doing and what you've read. So on that note, let's start with our meditations, folks. We'll meditate for 10 minutes. So we'll meditate for 10 minutes, and then we'll move on to our journaling session, folks. Let's start our meditation, folks. Okay, folks. Let's start with yesterday's newspaper. Now, if you see yesterday's newspaper, the first page, in fact, is the current affairs, is the world page. Now, I mean, in continuation of what we've been reading about, is that relief for the former Pakistani Prime Minister ahead of the general elections, and in the Toshkhana case, his sentence has been suspended. Political news, but it's okay. But what is more important for us is, after Beijing talks, US rejects Chinese appeal to ease tech exports control. So there is now a tech war that is going on. So we if you remember, there used to be something called trade wars between when Trump was there and Xi Jinping was there. Now this is upgraded into what is called as a tech war, especially as a chip war, where the US is basically denying China the access to high tech technology. So that is was one of the issues that was being resolved, but it's not being resolved per se now. Then apart from that, maybe you can read something which is interesting. Chinese county offers cash reward for couples if the bride is aged 25 years or younger. Basically, to increase the article basically talks about that since the Chinese, as well as Japanese, as well as South Korean, their age cohort is increasing, and people are not marrying. Therefore, these countries are encouraging people to marry and then have offspring. So this is probably what is leading to this, because all these countries have declining birth rates. Then let's talk about page number 3. Now let's see the front page. If you see the front page, first article, The Supreme Court has asked the government, is there a time frame for J&K statehood? When will you hold polls? So we already know about this particular issue as its content, but it's a political issue, not very important from the point of view of civil services, but at the same point of time, what the Supreme Court is wanting to ask is that yes, discussions that have happened in the court, the Supreme Court has kind of agreed that yes, there was a need of national importance, national security, because of which the invocation of and the repudiation of Article 370 was required. But at the same point of time, what the Supreme Court is wanting to ask is that you cannot have a situation where you are delaying polls, where your states have been cut into union territories without any solid timeline for reconversion into statehood. To which the government of India has replied that Ladakh will still remain to be a union territory, but yes, Jammu and Kashmir statehood will be restored whenever there is normalcy. The other thing that Tushar Mehta, as the Attorney General, had talked about in this court was that he'd given examples in the northeast. A number of these states, Manipur, Mizoram, Tripura, were earlier converted into union territories. And when the situation had arisen that they could have been converted into states, they were done. So a similar kind of strategy maybe is being adopted by the government of India in this case. So for your interviews, people who are appearing for interviews, you can keep a small track of these things, although they should not ask you about this. Now, another important article with respect to politics as well as with respect to economics is that what has happened in case of Ujjwala Yojana. Now, Ujjwala Yojana, you should be aware of that. Ujjwala Yojana provides for this thing, free electric stove and LPG connection. Now, one of the problems with Ujjwala Yojana you should know is that it provides. I think the first cylinder or the first 2 cylinders are free of cost, but after that, till 12 cylinders, you will get a subsidy of 200 rupees. And that is why there is a problem with Ujjwala Yojana. I mean, I'm talking about practical sense, that people once they get the connection, they revert back to the old wood burning and coal burning as well as cow dung burning, because they can't afford the cylinder. This is a major drawback of Ujjwala Yojana on ground, which is not being mentioned in this article, but I'm telling you from the ground level that this is the problem, that the first 1 or 2 cylinders are free, and after that the affordability comes into question. Now what the government does is government gives 200 rupees off on Ujjwala users. Non-Ujjwala users, there was no subsidy, but Ujjwala users, there were 200 rupees subsidy that the government was giving. And then over and above that, some state governments like Rajasthan used to give a subsidy of 300 rupees or 500 rupees. So that used to be the revenue expenditure of that particular state. Now what the government has done is because of the fact that the inflation is reeling very high, and it wants to bring down the cost of inflation and the cost of running a household for majority of households, especially poor households. Therefore, it has reduced the price of LPG. During the peak of the Ukraine war, the oil prices were at $100 per barrel. Now they have eased down to around $80 per barrel. So there is some kind of leg space for reduction of prices. So what the government has done is that the government is going to benefit all the 33 crore domestic consumers of LPG. Not just Ujjwala, every connection will get this help of 200 rupees. And Ujjwala users who are around 10 crore users will get an additional 200 rupees. So 400 rupees per cylinder. And over and above this will be the subsidy which the state government provides. So this is how this particular scheme is being played out. And then the government has said that we are going to increase the Ujjwala users by 75 lakhs to take the number to 10 crore 35,000 people. So read about this particular article. One important pointer that you can remember from the next page is that LPG is the primary source of energy for 50% of households in rural areas and 90% of households in urban areas, and that is why it has a huge impact on the economics as well as the politics. So read this article. Then India protests China at China's latest map. Jaishankar says absurd claims Beijing's old habit, and we already know this, that Beijing keeps changing its norm. It has come out with some new standard maps, and it has said that it is it has claimed complete ownership over a sky chain as well as the entire Arunachal Pradesh. And the government has given a riposte saying that these do not accurately. This is not what is there on the ground, but this is something that we should kind of ignore, because this is what Chinese habit is. They've also included Taiwan in their own territory in the new map. They've also discussed about everything under the 9 dash line in the South China Sea. So read about this 9 dash line that is there in the South China Sea. It's a very important point. Geopolitically, it's a very important point for all of you, because that is where a lot of hostilities are there between these countries which have presence in the South China Sea. That's a very hotly contested space when it comes to geopolitics and geostrategy. So read about that particular, and have a look at the atlas and locate this. Then another example which you can give in your ethics, and you can probably put it in an essay as well. Working on law to keep check on coaching centers. Rajasthan has become a very kind of shining state, because it was the first state, remember, to come up with a gig economy law. Now they are coming up a law for coaching centers. Why? Because Kota, as one of the hubs of coaching in Rajasthan, has witnessed 24 suicides this year, and a number of these coachings are basically running like sweatshops, where number of students are getting. We do not. A lot of people do not get to know whether the actual topper is from that particular institute or not. So these issues are faced by these students. Apart from that, there is too much of pressure. There is no counseling. There is no mental health counseling where that is done. And remember, these are all very young minds. So typically you don't see that in UPSC, because the audience for UPSC exam is somewhere around 23-24 years old, which was much more hard, and which is seen the life. But as a 17-year-old or a 16-year-old or a 18-year-old, the life is very fragile. So the impact the impact on young minds are much more damaging. Therefore, it needs some kind of regulation. And the minister says, no, we are not going to cut the clips of coaching institute, but we are going to regulate it, so that we can reduce the amount of suicides that are there. Then, very important article, folks. I am expecting a question on this in this year's mains. Maybe you can use it in next year's mains as well. Decide by 5 September, CPR, Center for Policy Research, plea on release of the 25% unutilized funds. Now, what has happened this year is that there was, just to give you a small background, there used to be this movement called Hasdeo Forest Movement in Chhattisgarh. Now, in the Hasdeo Forest Movement, some amount of funding for the protest was done through Center for Policy Research. Now, we have this FCRA Act, which basically says that any particular entity, any particular NGO can receive funds from foreign sources, provided that it does not participate in any political protests and other things. So, you should know about what are these FCRA norms for NGOs. This is very important for you, because there's a topic in paper 2 called development industries, NGOs, self-help groups. This is the entire topic, and you need to pick up that meat for that particular topic. You need to pick up from a lot of current affairs. So current affairs becomes the focus point of this particular topic. So therefore, I am expecting a question this year. Now, what had happened was that because of that protest, and because the government said that this CPR, which is one of the biggest research houses in India, with a lot of bureaucrats who used to serve here. So the government of India said that we are going to take away the FCRA certificate, which is basically akin to saying that we are going to cut your finance, because foreign contributions was one major source of income for this particular NGO or research think tank. Then apart from that, in I think in August, or no, I think in June, July, they had also cut income tax, there used to be income tax exemption was given to CPR, that was also taken back. So basically cutting down the economic resources and cutting the oxygen to the entire think tank, because of which this think tank is just crumbled. 83% of their of everyone who's associated with them has left, because since February or March they have not been able to pay salaries. Now, what the FCRA Act says that the 25% of the funds which the government has seized can be released to the NGO, provided certain norms are met. Now, this decision has still not been taken by the government. CPR says that we've already given all the submissions which answer to all the questions and how we are going to utilize these funds, but still the government has not taken the decision. That is what the High Court is now forcing the government to take a decision by 5th September, as well as the fact that this case was also given a stay. This FCRA violation thing was given a stay by the Delhi High Court. So read about this article. It has a very important connotation in terms of in terms of application in paper number 2. Then another article on the front page, to fill critical gaps, IAF looks to buy 6 mid-air refuelers. So this is again the government. What the government is trying to do is government is trying to buy pre-used this thing air fuelers. We already have 6 of them from Russia, but around 3 or 4 of them are usable at any point of time, because others are being serviced, and the cost of maintenance of these are also very high. So what the government is basically buying is government is refurbishing and buying big planes from other countries, and then it's going to refurbish it and basically repackage it to make it a refueler. So refueler are kind of force multipliers, because these jets and fighter jets can only fly for certain kilometers. After that, you would need to refuel them for further. To take them even deeper. So that is where the importance of these refuelers are, and we are planning to buy 6 of them. So you can read about this article. Then coming to page number 5, folks, couple of important things. 5, I don't know how they have. Okay. So Delhi residents lose nearly 12 years of their lives to air pollution, says latest report. Now, something which is very worrying is that the average level of PM 2.5 and particulate matter in 2021 was 25 times more than what the WHO level is. And this particular article says that how Delhi and NCR people are losing precious years of their life because of continuous exposure to heightened air pollution. So this is one article that I want you to read. The other is with respect to POXO. With respect to POXO, you should be aware that this might be important for your ethics case studies as well, that as per the POXO law, non-reporting of sexual abuse by any adult who is aware of the abuse is also a criminal offence. This is something that I did not know. So still, this is something that you should be knowing. And then Metro records its higher ridership, which is 68 lakh people have used Metro on Monday this time, which shows that complete revival after COVID. Now let's directly go to page number 10. Now, another important article with respect to governance is that Punjab 6, in which even the Supreme Court has given a rap on both the governor as well as the government, the Punjab government, that what they are doing is, because of the confrontation that they have had, the governance suffers, and this is not a one-off case. We have seen this of VK Saxena versus Kejriwal. We've also seen this in D. Ravi versus Stalin in case of Tamil Nadu. We are also seeing this in Kerala. We're seeing this in Karnataka. We're seeing this in Mamata Banerjee state. So where in all these states where you have an opposing party, a non-BJP party, we are saying that there are serious clashes between the governor and the representative, and one of the ways of frustrating an elected government is non-passing of bills. So here also 6 bills have not been passed, and it's constitutionally improprietary and immoral not to pass the bills which have been duly subjected to scrutiny of the state legislature. So this and you have very sharp words being exchanged between the governor and the chief minister in case of Punjab, and all of this does not augur well to the governance of the overall state, because that takes backstage, and that is what the article is saying, that both of them should come together, maybe have a tea and then resolve this issue, because that is something which is very important for the improvement of governance of the state. So this is important. Then the golden boy, you must be aware. Oh, just a second, folks. So you might be aware that Neeraj Chopra has won the world championship, and he's all set to now go for a double gold in case of Paris, and this basically article gives a eulogy of what his achievement is, but not just his. There are other things that have improved. For example, we have DP Manu and Kishore Jaina who have finished in the top 6 in javelin. And apart from that, we had read in day before yesterday's news that Mohammad Anas, Amod Jacob, Mohammad Ajmal, and Rajesh Ramesh have come fifth in the 4 into 100 relay race. So 4 into 400 relay race. So this is an important development when it comes to sports. But we also know about sports governance, folks, how poorly our sports governance is there. Maybe you can read this article, Stolen Goods, which talks about how the British has been saying that these artifacts are very safe with us instead of their home countries, and what we have realized is that around 2,000 of them have now found been on eBay. So it shows that they are not apparently safe in the British Museum either. Now, very important article, folks, with respect to your mains, even for your interview. Climate finance, hard fact. Now we already know during the Copenhagen Accord, there was this agreement that by 2020 the developing world will give $100 billion to developing countries every year to basically for the adaptation and mitigation strategies. Now mitigation takes 90% of the funds and adaptation only takes 10% of the funds, but this target has not been met. The developed countries say that we'll be able to achieve around say $80 billion this year, but effectively if you discount the non if you discount the non I mean concessional loans, the actual help is just around the concessional loans is just around I think 19 to $22 billion, which shows that there is huge deficit in terms of the financing of climate change, and that is where new multilateral banks needs to come into play, private sector needs to come into play, and now by 2030 we've already been reading about it, we would need around $4 trillion, out of which 2 trillion has to come from the government. So the governments of the day, which are already reeling under the issues of high inflation, with the Russia-Ukraine war, the setback of COVID, all of these countries needs to find financing sources, but we cannot rely really on them. And this is what the fulcrum of the article is, that we need to find our own sources for combating climate change. And within combating, it is mitigation which receives most of the funds because they are remunerative. So, for example, moving to from something like your coal industry to solar industry, that is a mitigating strategy. So this is something which is easily financeable. So the financing options of mitigating projects are very easily available, but at the same point of time, adaptation projects require long time of time, and they are risky as well, and that is where the funding is also not available, and that is where the governments and the government maybe can provide some kind of viability funding and ask the private sector to chip in with funds. So that is what is required for the time being to at least kickstart this. There is also possibility of imposing carbon taxes and issuing green bonds and catastrophic bonds that can help finance these kind of adaptation projects. So read about this article, which is a very important article. I've given you the summary of what the article says. Then Fali S. Nariman, one of the stalwarts of Supreme Court and a constitutional and a constitutional jurist. Now, what this article says, and this has been a debate, and I'm expecting a question maybe this year's mains, or maybe also in the interview, that the basic structure is now being heavily debated because of the stir that has been created by Rajan Gogoi in the parliament, where in his maiden speech in Rajya Sabha he said that maybe it's time to revisit the basic structure of the constitution. Now, this is something which has also been reiterated by the chairman of the Prime Minister Prime Minister Advisory Council, who says maybe it's time to revisit the entire constitution. But what this article says is that after the passing of the Keshavanand Bharati case, which established the basic structure of the constitution, there was another decision which was taken on the November 1975, where 13 judges kind of debated the question whether the power of amendment of the constitution was restricted to theory of basic structure and the framework as propounded in the Keshavanand Bharati case, and the CGI had then abruptly said that no, we do not need any debate on this. It has already been decided. We don't want to get into that. And even the first time the usage of the basic structure of the constitution came in through the 39th Amendment Bill 1975, which basically absolved Indira Gandhi of all the issues that she was facing, and the restraints that she was facing, and this article 329 subclause A said that the election was valid notwithstanding any judgment of the court, basically which took the power of judicial review, and this was being used in November 1975, and the constitutional bench had declared this as invalid because it violated the basic structure of the constitution. That was the first time usage of the basic structure of the constitution. And then this particular basic structure of the constitution was reiterated in two major cases. One was the Minerva Mill case in 1980, and the other was Iyer Kohilo versus the state of Tamil Nadu in 2007. So both these cases it was being argued with respect to the basic structure of the constitution, and it has now also been accommodated in the 44th Amendment Act, where the government cannot abridge anyone of the benefits of Article 20 and 21 because it would vitiate and would violate the kind of core structure of the constitution, which is required in any particular democracy. And that is what the last statement is about. The last particular statement, I really liked it, that any amending body or organized within a statutory scheme, howsoever unlimited its power, cannot by its very structure change the fundamental pillars supporting its constitutional authority. So very, very important thing, that you cannot destroy your own the legislative body cannot destroy its own standing to make up a kind of a new scheme of things. So this is a very important quotation that you can probably use for your answers if it comes to this. Then coming to next particular page, when food is a vaccine, we've talked about the article, where the Lancet article, which talks about that how increase in food by 5 to 6% was associated with 60% drop in the risk of dying. But there was another study which says that if the family members of a person who's suffering from TB, if their nutritional outcome is increased, then their susceptibility to contract TB will also go down. So this basically this article is coming out of these survey called as Rations study. So you need to know what the study is. Ration study is based on that TB thing, and which was then highlighted by Lancet. Now, so what this article says, that instead of just focusing on the medical outcomes, creating these medicines, the antibacterial medicines, and these regimes, the dot plus regimes, the government of the day should also focus on nutrition, which was also the focus of this Nipun Bharat, I guess, if it serves me right from the article. Nipun Bharat was also talking about. So Nikshay Poshan Yojana. So Nikshay Yoshin Pojna was talking about food supplementation or cash transfers to buy food for TB patients, which is going to have a very significant impact, and that is how the Western world has been able to reduce the incidence of TB in their countries, even before the inclusion of these anti bacterial drugs. So we should not just have a medical kind of a view. This is a disease which also has its manifestation from socio-economic outcomes. So if you improve the socio-economic outcomes, the kind of incidence of TB with respect to impact on health will come down. And one of the best parts of the study is that the study came from the ICMR. In effect, was financed by India's taxpayers, and co-investigators were drawn from Ministry of Health and ICMR's TB Research Institute. So it is an example of partnerships between the state and the civil society can generate path-breaking science. So very important article. Then another article which I found to be important was government departments and organizations are increasingly turning to global consulting firms for advice. Now this is again a part of governance. What is happening is that all these governments are coming up with the Odisha government, the Delhi government, the Punjab government. All these are going to these big four companies, the PwC, the McKinsey's, and the what else is there? KPMG. So they're going to all these companies, but what happens is that these companies, they have these consultants, the high paying consultants, which come up with their PowerPoint presentations, but at times their solutions that they have do not find resonance at the ground level, and there is no accountability. They have a huge influence on public policy, but at the same point of time they do not have any kind of accountability if the policy that they've been recommending goes wrong. So this is one major issue. The other issue is that why is the capacity of the state to do its own research is diminishing, especially in an era when you have a think tank like Niti Aayog. Shouldn't Niti Aayog step in into all these projects when this is needed? So this particular article talks about a couple of things. One is interest that the detrimental to nation's interest can be explained by this particular. Maybe this is a movie, The Big Con. Then the ill-fated farm laws are a demonstration of the failed agency and the capacity. Then apart from that, even China, Germany, US, all these countries are now cutting down and clamping these multinational consulting firms because they might also be anti-national. Their parent country might be thinking about something, and because of that, they might have a policy perspective in a particular country. So this is something that is being talked about. And then in the latter half, it talks about how other different state governments are basically coordinating with these big four companies for different projects. For example, Deloitte is being engaged by Uttar Pradesh for making it a $1 trillion economy. Then you have these philanthropists with deep pockets, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which gives advice. But that is not just unsolicited advice, it also wants a piece of the public policy and shape the public policy. And there can always be this conflict of interest that is there. Yes, so this is where there is a lot of problem because there is no accountability here, and we need to have some kind of accountability. One of the examples here is that the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmer Welfare used Grant Thornton to develop this 1,000 or 10,000 farmer producer organization, and the program is failing, and there is no accountability where the public money has been spent. So this is another thing. Then you can use examples like these. This is where your answers will be very different from other. One is you can give this example of the big con. The other is when McKinsey comes to town, where it talks about the hidden influence of these big four companies on the world, and especially because of the fact that you have CAG as there, and you do not use these domestic consulting firms because you have these high norms that you have set, that this much which should be the profit, this many should be the employees, and that is where all these consulting projects are won by these multinational companies rather than Indians. So this is another article that you need to read. Then directly come to the economy page. There are many regulatory bodies now, and I think they have to work in harmony is one article that you can read with respect to proliferation of regulatory bodies. And the outlays on roads and renewables may climb to 13 lakh crores in FY25 and 24. These are the two articles that you can read. Um, then I'm coming to page number 17 of the newspaper, which is the explained page. Two articles you can read. This article 370, case constitutionality of CO 272 and 273. Does not interest me too much, but what interests me is staring at the driest ever August. Something very important, folks. You should know that this has going to be a major implication on our monsoon as well as the inflation that we have had. Now what we are reeling under is that historically we've had a very poor monsoon season in terms of August. Our rainfall has been 160 mm, which is way below the average that we have of 250 mm, and way below the previous lows of 190 mm, and which shows, and this is just the national level. At sub-national level, when you see the district level data and the state level data, there are some states which have got 90% less rainfall. States like Gujarat and Kerala are at the deficit of 90%. So are Karnataka, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh. So this is going to have a major impact both on the Kharif crop, but more so on the Rabi crop, because this is the time when the reservoirs in India gets filled. The highest rainfall is usually received in July, which had a decent amount of rainfall, but the second highest, the 22% of the rainfall during the monsoon season is India gets through in the month of August, and that is where the recharge of aquifers, the recharge of the soil, the recharge of these dams and all these on these ponds is important, and that is not being done, and it is going to have an implication on the Rabi crop, and then therefore on the inflation of the country. And this also shows the strength of El Nino that is there. Remember the index that we have is showing a very strong index this year, so which has an impact, and the government needs to do multi-pronged strategy to counter this inflation. For example, it has already reduced by 200 rupees the price of, and we already know the kind of policy that is taken on the front of onions, tomatoes, rice, as well as pulses. So all of these measures you should be aware about, but how to counter it, and this is just the starting of the impact of the climate change that we are reeling under. So you might find more of these flooding that we found in July, and then more of these droughts that we are finding in August. So we need better measures in terms of protection of our environment from then. Another article that you can read about is self-respect marriage, which happens only in Tamil Nadu, whereby you do not need a priest to basically solemnize a marriage, and it is called a Suya Mari Yathai marriages, which is basically an addition to Hindu Marriage Act, the section 7, which says that you don't even need don't need these Brahmanical things like Mangal Sutra and then tying, and all of this is not required. You do not need a holy fire or Saptapadi that is required, and this was started by Periyar Ramaswamy, because they wanted to reduce the influence of priests area. But at the same point of time, this was being challenged because advocates were doing these marriages in secrecy, and the government said that these are not, or the court has said that these are not marriages to be done in secrecy. These are marriages to be announced in public, and that is what the article. Then page on the sports page, folks, I want you to take down the example of this particular school called as Velam Vidyalaya, which has produced which has been winning the world chess for 5 years, and Prague and Gukesh are products of this particular school. So how a particular school can enrich a number of world champions because of the kind of values that it has and how it promotes sports is a very good example, and that is where Chennai has also become a major hub. Now Chennai, if you see, out of the 83 grandmasters that India has, 29 are from Tamil Nadu, and 15 of them have begun the journey in one particular school. And this is an example that you can give in your ethics and in your essay to give it a very different flavor. So read about this article, the Chennai Chess Factory. So this is something that you can talk about. And with this, let's end our newspaper session, folks. I will now meet you tomorrow with today's newspaper, and have a great day, folks, and thank you very much.